The great chamber stretched out before them like a cathedral made of stars. Daewon stood at the entrance and felt his heart sink. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats that curved up into the darkness above. Their eyes in all shapes and colors turned toward him and his small group of humans. The air smelled strange, like metal and flowers mixed together. Hana moved closer to his side. Her hand rested near her weapon, though she knew it would be useless here. Behind them, June carried the communication equipment, his young face pale with fear. This was Earth's first meeting with the Galactic Council, and already it felt like a trial. They walked forward on a path that glowed with soft light. The path led to a small platform in the center of the massive room. Above them, 7 beings sat on thrones that floated in the air. These were the High Council, the rulers of 1,000 worlds. They had governed the galaxy for 10,000 years. No one questioned them. No one refused them, until today. The largest of the 7 leaned forward. His skin looked like gray stone, and his eyes were deep black pools that reflected no light. This was High Counselor Vex, the voice of the Council. When he spoke, his words came out in a language humans could not understand, but machines translated them into a cold, emotionless voice. Welcome, humans. You stand before the Galactic Council. Your species has been discovered. You will now join the civilized galaxy. These are our terms. Daewon listened as Vex spoke. With each sentence, his jaw tightened. Earth would have to destroy most of its military. Earth would have to accept alien observers in every major city. Earth would have to give 30% of everything it produced to the Council as tribute. Earth's people would have to follow Council laws, even if those laws made no sense for humans. The terms were not negotiable. Every species in the galaxy had accepted them. Refusal meant war. Refusal meant destruction. The Council had never lost. The Council had never been challenged. Vex finished speaking and waited. The chamber was silent. Thousands of beings watched the humans, waiting for them to bow their heads and accept. That was how it always went. That was how it had gone for 10,000 years. Daewon stood quiet for a long moment. He thought about Earth. He thought about the wars his people had fought to be free. He thought about the billions of humans who had bled and died so their children could live without masters. He thought about what surrender would mean. Then he spoke one word. His voice was calm and clear. No, the chamber exploded with noise. Alien voices rose in shock and anger. Some laughed, thinking they had misunderstood. Others made sounds that the translation machines could not interpret. But the meaning was clear. No one said no to the Council. Vex's eyes narrowed. His voice became harder, like stone grinding against stone. You refuse? You do not understand your position, human. Your species is weak. Your technology is primitive. Your world is one small planet in a galaxy of millions. You have no choice. Daewon looked up at the floating thrones. His voice stayed calm, but now everyone could hear the steel in it. We always have a choice. We choose freedom. We choose to stand on our own. We choose to fight rather than submit. You call us weak and primitive. You are probably right. But we are also something you have forgotten. We are free people, and free people do not bow. The chamber fell silent again. This was different. This was not the shocked silence of before. This was the silence of something changing. Something that had been the same for 10,000 years was breaking. Hana moved her hand to her weapon. Around them, council guards began to advance. These were soldiers from a dozen different species, all armed with weapons that could burn through steel. Vex rose from his throne. His voice shook with rage. Then you have chosen death. The council fleet will come to your world. Your cities will burn. Your people will beg for mercy. And we will make you an example that the galaxy will never forget. No one refuses the council. No one. Daewon felt his heart pounding. Fear tried to grip him, but he pushed it away. He had known this moment would come. He had known the cost. But some things were worth dying for. Come then. Bring your fleet. Bring your weapons. Bring your 10,000 years of conquests. And you will learn something new. You will learn why humans survived when stronger species died. You will learn why we never stayed conquered. You will learn that some people would rather die free than live as slaves. The guards were close now. Hana pulled her weapon. The other humans in Daewon's security team did the same. They were outnumbered 100 to 1, but they did not hesitate. The first guard reached for Daewon. Hana shot him. The weapon made a sharp crack that echoed through the chamber. The guard fell, and then chaos erupted. The human security team fought like cornered wolves. They were not trying to win. They were trying to reach their ship. Hana led the way, her weapon firing in short, controlled bursts. Daewon ran behind her, with June clutching the equipment bag and stumbling over his own feet. Council guards fell, but more kept coming. The humans took hits too. One of the security team went down with a burn across his chest. Another fell and did not get up. But they kept moving, kept fighting, kept pushing toward the exit. They burst through a doorway into a corridor. Their ship was docked at the end, just 100 meters away. Hana shouted for everyone to run. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew louder. They reached the ship and threw themselves inside. The door sealed behind them, just as energy weapons struck the hull. The pilot did not wait for orders. The ship tore away from the docking port and accelerated into open space. Daewon collapsed into a seat, breathing hard. Around him, his people checked their wounds and counted their losses. 3 dead, 5 wounded, but they had escaped. June called out from the communication station, his voice shaking. "Sir, they put tracking devices on our hull. Multiple signals. They will know exactly where Earth is. They will be coming soon." "Very soon," Daewon nodded slowly. He had expected this. The Council would not let them escape without making sure they could find Earth. The war was already beginning. Hana sat down beside him. Blood ran down her arm from a graze, but she ignored it. Her face was grim. "Did we do the right thing?" Daewon looked out the window at the stars rushing past. Somewhere out there, Earth waited. Billions of people who did not yet know that war was coming. Billions of people who would have to fight for their freedom or die trying. I do not know. But we did the only thing we could do. We stayed free. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing toward home. Behind them, the Council was already preparing its fleet. The message had been sent to every corner of the galaxy. A species had refused. An example would be made, but the message went both ways. In hidden places on conquered worlds, other species watched recordings of what had happened. They saw a human stand before the most powerful beings in the galaxy and say one simple word: no. And for the first time in 10,000 years, some of them began to hope. The damaged ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Immediately, dozens of military vessels surrounded it, weapons charged and ready. But when they identified the ship as the diplomatic vessel, the weapons powered down. The ship was given clearance to approach Earth. Daewon watched through the window as his home planet grew larger. From space, Earth looked peaceful. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents. It was beautiful. And soon it would become a battlefield. The ship docked at the orbital station. As soon as the door opened, military officers rushed in. They had questions. They needed answers. But most of all, they needed to know how much time they had. Not much, Daewon told them. Maybe a month. Maybe less. Within hours, he was in the War Council chamber deep under the Rocky Mountains. The room was filled with military leaders, scientists, and government officials. Every face looked worried. They had all seen the recordings June had managed to send ahead. They knew what was coming. Admiral Tae-sung stood at the head of the table. He was an old man, with white hair and a face marked by decades of military service. He had commanded fleets in the water wars. He had seen cities burn. But he had never faced anything like this. 500 warships, he said quietly. Each one bigger than anything we have ever built. They will arrive in less than a month. We cannot match their numbers. We cannot match their technology. If we fight them directly, we will lose in hours. Someone suggested surrender. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at Daewon. He was the one who had refused the council. He was the one who had started this war. Daewon stood up slowly. His body ached from the fight in the council chamber. His mind was tired from days without sleep. But his voice was firm. We will not surrender. I refuse the council because surrender means slavery. It means our children growing up under alien masters. It means everything our ancestors fought for was for nothing. If we must fight, we fight. If we must die, we die free. Admiral Tae-sung nodded. Then we need a plan. We cannot win a direct battle. So we will not fight a direct battle. We will use our solar system itself as a weapon. He brought up a holographic display of the solar system. His plan unfolded piece by piece. The asteroid belt would be turned into a minefield. Mining stations would become gun platforms. Every moon, every planet, every piece of rock would hide weapons. The human fleet would not stand and fight. They would hit and run, using the terrain they knew better than any alien invader. It was a good plan. It gave them a chance. Not a big chance, but a chance. In another part of the facility, Dr. Yunji was not sleeping. She had not slept in 3 days. Her team was working on the data June had stolen from the Council networks. It was incomplete, but it was something. She found weaknesses in the Council's shield technology. The shields were powerful, but they had to recharge. During those few seconds, they were vulnerable. She also found that certain frequencies could disrupt the shields temporarily. It was not much, but it was hope. Dr. Yunji designed new weapons based on this knowledge. Plasma lances that could punch through shields during recharge cycles. Mass drivers that used magnetic acceleration to throw metal at incredible speeds. Swarm drones that could overwhelm defenses through sheer numbers. The weapons were not fancy. They were brutal and simple, but they would work. Across Earth, people watched the news. The government could not hide what was happening. Everyone knew that war was coming. Some people panicked. Some people despaired, but most people did something that surprised even themselves. They stood up to help. Recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers. Factories changed their production lines to make weapons and ammunition. Scientists who had been working on peaceful projects dropped everything to help the military. Old enemies put aside their conflicts. Nations that had fought each other for generations worked together. Earth was uniting in a way it never had before. Bora was one of the volunteers. She was a civilian pilot, flying cargo between Earth and the mining stations. When the call went out for fighter pilots, she signed up immediately. She was not the best pilot. She was not the most experienced. But she had something the military needed. She had no fear of dying. Her family had died in a pirate raid years ago. She had nothing left to lose. When they offered her a place in the experimental neural interface program, she accepted without hesitation. The neural interface was dangerous. It connected directly to her brain, letting her control her fighter as if it were part of her body. Some pilots went insane from the connection. Others died when their brains could not handle the information. Bora survived. More than that, she excelled. Within 2 weeks, she was leading a wing of 200 fighters. They practiced maneuvers that should have been impossible. They learned to fly in ways that no computer could predict. They became weapons. Day One watched all of this happening and felt a weight on his chest. These people were preparing to die because of his choice. These young pilots, these scientists, these soldiers, they were all going to war because he had said no. Hana found him standing alone, looking out at Earth from an observation window. You are thinking about the people who will die. Day One did not turn around. Yes. They chose this. Just like you chose. They could run. They could hide. But they are standing up to fight. You gave them that choice. You gave them the chance to fight for freedom instead of accepting slavery. Does that make the deaths easier? No, but it makes them meaningful. 1 month passed faster than anyone wanted. The preparations were not complete. They would never be complete. But they had done everything they could. The asteroid belt was armed. The planetary defenses were ready. The fleet was positioned, and everyone waited. Then the sensors detected them. 500 massive ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They were arranged in a perfect formation meant to inspire fear and awe. Each ship was kilometers long. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a city. The Council fleet had arrived. Admiral Tae-sung stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, Earth's largest warship. Around him, officers worked at their stations. No one spoke. The magnitude of what they faced was overwhelming. A message came from the Council fleet. It was simple. Surrender now. Send Day One for execution. Accept Council rule, or be destroyed. Admiral Tae-sung looked at the communication officer. Send our response. The officer nodded and transmitted a single message to the Council fleet. It was broadcast from every human ship, every station, every armed platform in the solar system. 3 words, simple, clear, defiant, come and take it. The Council fleet began moving forward. They came slowly, arrogantly, confident in their superiority. They expected Earth to panic. They expected humanity to break. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In the hidden bases throughout the outer solar system, human forces waited in silence. They watched the Council fleet advance into their trap. They knew most of them would die. They knew the odds were impossible. But they also knew something the Council had forgotten. Sometimes the weak can defeat the strong. Sometimes courage matters more than weapons. Sometimes freedom is worth any price. The war for Earth had begun. Neptune hung in space like a blue jewel, its rings barely visible in the darkness. Among those rings, hidden in the ice and rock, Captain Hyun waited with his squadron. His ships were small, fast, and armed with weapons that the Council had never seen before. The Council fleet was getting closer. Their massive ships moved through space in perfect formation. They scanned for threats but found nothing. The humans were too well hidden. The Council was confident. They had done this 1,000 times before. Another primitive species. Another easy conquest. Hyun watched them come. He had been a smuggler before the war, running illegal goods past military patrols. He knew every trick for staying hidden. He knew when to run and when to fight. And right now he knew the Council fleet was exactly where Admiral Tae-sung wanted them. The order came through his headset. 3 words. Fire at will. Hyun gave the signal. From hiding spots throughout Neptune's rings, mass driver cannons opened fire. These were not energy weapons that the Council shields could easily deflect. These were chunks of metal accelerated to impossible speeds. Simple. Brutal. Effective. The metal slugs hit the Council fleet like hammers. Shields flared and sparked. Several ships lost their shields completely. The Council fleet broke formation, confused and alarmed. They had not expected this. They had not expected the humans to strike first. Before the Council could respond, the second wave hit. Thousands of small drones emerged from the ice and debris. They were cheap, simple machines with one purpose: fly at enemy ships and explode. The Council's point defense systems fired desperately, destroying hundreds of drones. But there were too many. The drones swarmed over the Council ships like angry insects. They exploded against hulls and shields. Individually, they did little damage. Together, they overwhelmed the defenses. More Council ships lost their shields. Some took hull damage. The perfect formation collapsed into chaos. On the Indomitable, Admiral Tae-sung watched the battle unfold. Everything was going according to plan. Now for the third wave. Bora felt the neural interface connect to her mind. Information flooded her consciousness. Ship status, weapon readiness, the positions of every fighter in her wing, the location of every enemy vessel. It was overwhelming and beautiful at the same time. She spoke into her microphone. All wings, this is Alpha Leader. Follow my lead. Hit the damaged ships. Make every shot count. And remember, we are not trying to win today. We are trying to make them pay. 200 fighters launched from hidden positions. They accelerated toward the Council fleet at incredible speeds. The neural interfaces let the pilots react faster than any normal human could. They wove through defensive fire like they could see the future. Bora led the first attack run. Her fighter screamed past a Council cruiser that had lost its shields. She fired her plasma lance. The weapon punched through the hull like paper. Behind her, other fighters followed, each one targeting the same ship. The cruiser exploded in a brilliant ball of fire. The Council fleet finally responded. Their own fighters launched. Energy weapons filled the space between the fleets, and humans started to die. The Council fighters were better armed and better armored, but the human pilots were unpredictable. They flew in ways that made no tactical sense. They took risks that no sane pilot would take, and they kept coming, even when their ships were damaged and burning. Bora watched her pilots die one by one. Each death felt like a piece of her own heart tearing away. But she kept fighting. She led another attack run, then another. 3 more Council ships exploded. But the cost was terrible. Her wing was down to half strength. And the Council was adapting. Admiral Tae-sung saw the battle turning. The human forces had achieved their goal. They had damaged the Council fleet. They had proven that humanity would fight. But if they stayed longer, they would be destroyed completely. All forces fall back. Retreat to the Jupiter line. We have done enough. The order went out. Hyun's squadron fired one last volley and then ran, their small ships disappearing into the darkness. The surviving fighters disengaged and fled toward the inner system. The drones that were still functional followed pre-programmed escape routes. The Council fleet did not pursue. They were too busy dealing with damage and regrouping. 30 of their ships had been destroyed. Dozens more were damaged. Their perfect formation was gone. Their confidence was shaken. The human forces gathered near Jupiter, counting their losses. The numbers were hard to hear. Captain Hyun had lost 1/3 of his squadron. Bora's fighter wing was down to 90 pilots from 200. The drone swarm was almost completely destroyed, but they had survived. And more importantly, they had hurt the enemy. On the Council flagship, the commander stared at the damage reports. He was an experienced officer who had conquered dozens of worlds. He had never seen anything like this. These humans fought like they had nothing to lose. They used tactics he had never encountered. They turned their primitiveness into an advantage. His second-in-command spoke quietly. "Should we request reinforcements?" The commander thought about it. Requesting reinforcements would be admitting weakness. It would be admitting that these primitive humans were a real threat. His pride said no, but his tactical mind said yes. Before he could decide, a message came from the Council homeworld. It was not a request. It was an order. Proceed to Earth immediately. Make an example of them. Show the galaxy what happens to those who refuse the Council. The commander acknowledged the order. He would continue the advance. But now he knew this would not be easy. These humans were different. On the Indomitable, Admiral Tae-sung addressed his remaining forces. His voice was tired but firm. "We hurt them today. We proved that we can fight. But this is just the beginning. They will come at us harder now. They will be more careful. The next battle will be worse. Some of you will not survive. Maybe none of us will survive, but we will make them remember us. We will make them regret coming to our home." The crews cheered. It was not a happy sound. It was the sound of people who knew they were going to die but refused to give up. Bora sat in her fighter, still docked with the Indomitable. Her hands shook. The neural interface had been disconnected, but she could still feel the ghosts of her dead pilots in her mind. She had led them into battle. She had watched them die, and tomorrow she would do it again. A message came through on a private channel. It was from Admiral Tae-sung. "You did well today, Commander. Your pilots died as heroes. Their sacrifice bought us time. It bought us hope." Bora did not feel like a hero. She felt like someone who sent her friends to die. But she replied anyway. "We will be ready for the next battle, sir." The Council fleet began moving again. Slower now, more cautious. They scanned every rock, every piece of debris, looking for hidden threats. The Battle of Neptune had taught them that humans were dangerous, but it had also taught them something else. It had taught them that humans could be beaten. The Council lost 30 ships, but they still had over 400. The humans lost more proportionally. In a war of numbers, the Council would win. They just did not realize that humans were not fighting a war of numbers. They were fighting a war of will, and will was something humans had in abundance. The fleet continued toward Jupiter, where the next battle waited. Dr. Yoonji had not slept in 4 days. Her eyes were red. Her hands shook from too much coffee, but she kept working. The team had recovered wreckage from the destroyed Council ships at Neptune. Now they were taking it apart piece by piece, learning everything they could. What she found made her call Admiral Tae-sung immediately. "I found something. A weakness. A big one." The Admiral arrived at her lab within the hour. Daewon came with him, and Hana followed. Dr. Yoonji brought up a holographic display of the Council's communication network. The Council fleet uses faster-than-light communication to coordinate their ships. "All the communication runs through the flagship. If we can get to the flagship and corrupt their network, we can cause chaos. Their ships will not be able to coordinate. They will not be able to call for reinforcements. They might even fire on each other by accident." Admiral Tae-sung studied the display. "How do we get to the flagship?" "It will be in the center of their formation, protected by hundreds of other ships." Dr. Yoonji looked at Daewon. "We use a captured Council shuttle. We pretend to be damaged. We get close enough to board. Then we upload a virus into their system. It was a suicide mission. Everyone in the room knew it. Getting to the flagship would be hard. Getting inside would be harder. Getting out would be impossible." Daewon spoke before anyone else could. "I will lead the mission," Hana immediately protested. "Sir, you are too important. We need you here." Daewon shook his head. "This war started because of me. Because I refused the Council. If someone has to die to give us a chance, it should be me." "Then I am coming with you," Hana said firmly. "You will need security. You will need someone to watch your back." Jun stepped forward too. His voice was quiet but determined. "You will need someone who understands Council technology, someone who can upload the virus and make sure it works. You need me. Admiral Tae-sung wanted to argue. These were some of his best people, but he knew they were right. This mission needed them, and if it worked, it could change everything. Hana assembled a team, 8 people total, all volunteers, all knowing they would probably die. They spent 2 days preparing. They studied the council ship layouts. They practiced the mission over and over. Dr. Yoonji modified the virus to make it faster and more destructive. The council fleet reached Jupiter. They were moving slowly now, scanning everything, expecting another ambush. Admiral Tae-sung gave them one. Every human ship and weapon platform opened fire at once. It was a massive assault, spectacular and loud, exactly what the council expected. While the battle raged, a small council shuttle drifted toward the flagship. It was broadcasting a distress signal. The transponders identified it as a scout ship from the Neptune battle. The message was simple. Engines damaged, life support failing, requesting emergency docking. Inside the shuttle, Daewon held his breath. The ruse was simple, but would it work? The council might just destroy them, or they might scan too carefully and discover the humans hiding inside. Permission granted. Dock at Port 7. They were in. The shuttle docked with the massive flagship. The door opened. Daewon and his team stepped out, wearing captured council armor. For a moment it seemed like it would work. The alien soldiers at the docking port barely glanced at them. Then an alarm sounded. The internal sensors had detected something wrong. Maybe the armor did not fit quite right. Maybe their movements were too different. It did not matter. Their cover was blown. Hana reacted first. She shot the closest guard and dove for cover. The rest of the team followed. Suddenly, the docking bay was a war zone. Energy weapons fired in all directions. The humans fought desperately, trying to reach the door that led deeper into the ship. One of the team members fell, then another, but the rest pushed forward. They had no choice. The communication core was deep inside the flagship. They had to reach it. The corridors were narrow and confusing. Hana led the way, shooting anything that moved. Behind her, Daewon and June ran as fast as they could. The remaining team members covered their retreat, dying one by one to buy seconds. They reached a junction. Hana checked her map. The communication core was close now. Just 2 more corridors, but council reinforcements were coming from all directions. They could hear the sounds of boots and weapons charging. Hana made a decision. She looked at Daewon and he saw the determination in her eyes. Take June, get to the core. Upload the virus. I will hold them here, Daewon wanted to argue. But he knew she was right. They needed time. Someone had to buy it. Hana smiled. It was a sad smile, but also proud. It has been an honor, sir. Now go. And make them pay for this, Daewon ran. Behind him, he heard Hana and the remaining team members open fire. The sounds of battle echoed through the corridors. He forced himself not to look back. He and June reached the communication core. It was a large room filled with strange technology. June immediately started working, connecting his equipment to the alien systems. Dr. Yoonji guided him through the process over their communication link. The virus upload began. 10%, 20%. Behind them, the sounds of fighting stopped. That meant Hana's team was dead. It meant council forces were coming, 50%. Daewon stood at the door, his weapon ready. He could hear boots running toward them, 70%. The first council soldiers appeared. Daewon fired. They fired back. Energy bolts scorched the walls around him, 90%. Daewon took a hit to his shoulder. The pain was incredible, but he kept firing, 100%. June shouted, "It is done. Activating now." He pressed the final button. The virus spread through the council's network like fire through dry grass. Across the fleet, ship systems began to fail. Navigation showed false readings. Communication channels crossed and created confusion. Weapon targeting systems identified friendly ships as enemies. The perfect council formation dissolved into chaos. In the communication core, Daewon grabbed June. "We have to go." Now they ran. Council soldiers chased them, but the ship's systems were failing. Doors opened and closed randomly. Lights flickered. Even the gravity became unstable. It was chaos, and chaos was exactly what they needed. They found an escape pod. Daewon shoved June inside and climbed in after him. The pod launched just as council soldiers reached them. Energy bolts struck the pod's hull, but it was already accelerating away. Through the pod's small window, they watched the council fleet. Ships were colliding with each other. Some were firing on their own allies. The formation was completely broken. Admiral Taesung saw his chance and ordered a full assault. The human fleet struck hard. They targeted the confused and damaged council ships. It was not a fair fight anymore. It was a slaughter. Daewon and Jun's escape pod was picked up by a human ship. As they climbed out, exhausted and wounded, Admiral Taesung was waiting. He smiled grimly. It worked. The council fleet is retreating. We won, but the victory felt hollow. Hana was dead. Her entire team was dead. They had paid the price for this victory in blood. Daewon looked at the retreating council ships. We won this battle. But the war is not over. They will come back. And next time they will be ready for us. He was right. In council space, the High Council was meeting. They were furious. They were humiliated, and they were making a decision that would change everything. If conventional forces could not defeat humanity, they would use the ultimate weapon. They would deploy the planet crackers. The sensors detected them before anyone could see them. 6 massive objects dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Each one was the size of a small moon. Each one radiated power that made Earth's strongest weapons look like toys. The planet crackers had arrived. Admiral Taesung stared at the display in the war room. His face was pale. He had heard stories about the planet crackers, ancient weapons that the Council used to destroy worlds that resisted too much. He had hoped the stories were exaggerated. Now he knew they were not. A message came from the Council. It was simple and final. Surrender Daewon for execution. Dismantle all military forces. Submit to occupation, or Earth will be destroyed. You have 48 hours. The room was silent. Everyone knew what those weapons could do. They could turn Earth into floating rocks. They could kill every living thing on the planet. And humanity had no defense against them. Someone suggested surrender. Maybe if they gave up Daewon, the Council would be satisfied. Maybe they could negotiate better terms now. Daewon stood up. His shoulder was still bandaged from the wound he took on the flagship. His face showed the exhaustion of weeks of war. But his voice was steady. I will not surrender, and Earth will not surrender. We have come too far. We have lost too many people. If we give up now, all of them died for nothing. The government agreed. Messages went out to every city, every nation, every person on Earth. The choice was simple. Fight and maybe die, or surrender and definitely lose everything. The people chose to fight. Evacuation protocols began. People moved into deep shelters and underground bunkers. If Earth survived the coming battle, they would rebuild. If not, at least they would die free. Dr. Yoonji was working on something impossible. She had an idea. A crazy, dangerous, impossible idea. She called it Operation Solar Fury. When she explained it to Admiral Taesung and Daewon, they thought she had gone insane from lack of sleep. You want to weaponize the sun? Daewon asked slowly. Dr. Yoonji nodded, her eyes bright with exhaustion and excitement. We launch nuclear warheads into the sun's corona in a specific pattern. If we time it perfectly, we can trigger a solar flare. A big one. And we can aim it at the planet crackers. Admiral Taesung studied the calculations. Will it work? I do not know. We have never tried anything like this. The math says it should work. But the margin for error is tiny. If we get the timing wrong, nothing happens. If we get the angle wrong, the flare misses. If we get the power wrong, it might not be strong enough, and if we get it right, Dr. Yoonji smiled. If we get it right, we hit them with the power of a star. Their shields will not matter. Their armor will not matter. They will burn. It was insane. It was desperate. But it was the only chance they had. Admiral Taesung gave the order to prepare the weapons. The planet crackers moved slowly through the solar system. They did not hurry. They knew they were unstoppable. The remaining Council fleet guarded them. After the losses at Jupiter, the Council was being careful. They scanned for threats. They expected another desperate human attack. They got one. Every human ship left in the fleet launched a final assault. It was spectacular and suicidal. Bora led what remained of the fighter wings. They dove at the planet crackers like insects attacking giants. Their weapons barely scratched the massive hulls. But that was not the point. The point was distraction. While the Council focused on the attacking fleet, nobody noticed the small missiles heading toward the sun. They were not flying toward any Council ship. They were flying into Earthstar itself. Bora's fighter took hit after hit. Her wing was dying around her, but she kept attacking, kept drawing fire, kept buying time. She knew she was not going to survive this. None of them were. But if they could buy enough time for Dr. Yunji's plan to work, it would be worth it. In the command center on Earth, Daewon watched the countdown. The missiles were approaching the sun. The timing had to be perfect. 1 second too early or too late and the whole plan failed. Dr. Unji sat at her console, her hands on the firing controls. Sweat ran down her face. All the calculations were done. All the preparations were complete. Now it was just a matter of timing. 10 seconds. Bora's fighter exploded, but her sacrifice and the sacrifice of hundreds of other pilots had bought enough time. 5 seconds. The missiles reached their target points in the sun's corona, 0. Dr. Yunji pressed the button. The nuclear warheads detonated in perfect sequence, each explosion triggering reactions in the sun's plasma. For a moment, nothing happened. Dr. Yunji's heart sank. Had they failed? Then the sun erupted. A solar flare burst from the sun's surface. But this was not a normal flare. This was focused, aimed, directed by the precise placement of the nuclear detonations. It was a column of fire millions of kilometers long, racing toward the planet crackers at the speed of light. The Council had seconds to react. Their sensors detected the flare, but there was nothing they could do. The planet crackers were too massive to move quickly. Their shields were designed to stop weapons, not the raw power of a star. The solar flare hit them like the hammer of an angry god. Shields overloaded instantly. The electromagnetic pulse fried every circuit. The heat melted armor that could withstand nuclear weapons. The planet crackers, these ancient weapons of destruction, these terrors that had destroyed countless worlds, burned like paper in a furnace. All 6 of them were destroyed in less than a minute. The edge of the solar flare caught the Council fleet too. Ships that were too close burned. Those farther away lost their shields and systems. The perfect fleet formation dissolved into panic as ships tried to escape the reach of the sun's fury. In the command center, everyone stared at the displays in stunned silence. Then someone started cheering. Then everyone was cheering, crying, hugging each other. They had done it. They had turned their own sun into a weapon. They had destroyed the unstoppable planet crackers. Daewon sat down heavily. His hands were shaking. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. Bora was dead. Most of the fleet was gone. Thousands of pilots had died buying the time needed for the solar weapon to work. Dr. Yunji collapsed at her console, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Admiral Tae-sung put a hand on her shoulder. "You saved us all, Doctor. You gave us a miracle." She looked up at him with red eyes. "We only delayed them. The Council still exists. They will send more ships. They will try again." Admiral Tae-sung shook his head. "No, something has changed. Look." He pointed to another display. Messages were coming in from across the galaxy. Other species, other worlds that the Council had conquered, were rising in rebellion. They had watched Earth's defiance. They had seen a primitive species defeat the Council's greatest weapons. And they had found hope. Uprisings were breaking out on dozens of worlds. The Council's forces were spread thin, fighting on multiple fronts. The empire that had ruled for 10,000 years was cracking. And then came a message that surprised everyone. It was encrypted, using codes that only Council members would know. It was from someone inside the Council itself, someone who wanted to help. The message was simple: "You have proven that the Council can be beaten. Others want to join you. We want to end the tyranny. We want a new galaxy. Will you meet with us?" Daewon read the message 3 times. It could be a trap. It could be a trick, but it could also be the chance they needed. He looked at Admiral Tae-sung. "We have to respond. We have to try. The war for Earth was over, but a larger war was just beginning. A war that would decide the fate of the entire galaxy." The ship arrived at Earth 3 weeks after the solar flare battle. It came alone, without escorts, broadcasting peace signals on every frequency. The ship was small by Council standards, but still larger than any human vessel. And it carried someone important. Councillor Ventar was one of the 7 rulers of the Galactic Council. He was old, even by his species' standards. He had served on the Council for over 200 years. And now he was committing treason by coming to Earth. Daewon met him in a secure facility on Earth's surface. Armed guards surrounded them. Admiral Tae-sung watched from behind one-way glass. his hand ready to give orders if this was a trap. Ventar was tall and thin, with skin that looked like pale marble. His eyes were large and dark. When he spoke, his voice was tired and sad. I have watched the council become corrupt. I have watched it turn from a force for peace into a machine of oppression. For decades, I tried to change it from within. I failed, but then I watched you. I watched a primitive species stand up and say no. And I realized that change must come from outside. Day One studied him carefully. Why should we trust you? You are part of the system we are fighting. You should not trust me. Not yet. But I have brought proof of my intentions. Intelligence on council fleet movements. Codes for their communication systems. And most importantly, information about the Harbinger Array. The Harbinger Array? Day One asked. Ancient weapons hidden in dead systems throughout the galaxy. Each one can sterilize a planet, killing all life but leaving the structures intact. The Council is preparing to activate them. They plan to make examples of rebel worlds, starting with Earth. The room went cold. Admiral Taesung came in immediately, his face grim. How long do we have? Weeks, maybe less. The Harbingers are being prepared now. Once they activate, there is no defense. No escape. Ventar provided the locations of the Harbinger control systems. They were all on the Council homeworld. In a facility guarded by the most powerful defenses in the galaxy, it was impossible to reach. Impossible to destroy, unless they were not alone. Messages went out across the galaxy. Encrypted communications to the rebel worlds. Earth was calling for a meeting. A chance to coordinate. A chance to strike back together. They came in secret, representatives from dozens of species. Some were aquatic beings from ocean worlds. Some were crystalline entities that thought in ways humans could barely understand. Some were more familiar. Humanoid species that had been conquered generations ago. All of them had watched Earth's defiance. All of them wanted freedom. The meeting took place on a neutral space station hastily constructed in an empty system. The representatives gathered in a large chamber. Translation devices allowed them to understand each other. The air was thick with hope and fear. Day One stood before them. He had not wanted this role. He was not a politician. He was not a leader of worlds. But circumstances had made him the symbol of resistance. When he spoke, the galaxy listened. We are here because we share a common enemy. The Council has ruled through fear for 10,000 years. They have taken our freedom. They have stolen our resources. They have made us slaves in all but name. Some of you have been under their rule for generations. You have forgotten what freedom feels like. He paused, looking at each representative. Humans are new to the galaxy. We have only known about the Council for a few months. But we have known tyranny before. We have fought it before. And we know that the only way to defeat tyranny is to stand together. The Council expects us to fight alone. They expect us to be divided by our differences. But what if we unite? What if we take everything they have used to control us and turn it into our strength? A representative from an insectoid species spoke up. The Council homeworld is the most defended place in the galaxy. An attack would be suicide. Admiral Taesung stepped forward. Yes, it would be. If we attacked conventionally, but we will not fight a conventional battle. Each of your species has unique abilities, unique technologies, things the Council has suppressed or ignored. Together we can do what none of us can do alone. He explained the plan. It was complex and desperate. Each species would contribute their strengths. The aquatic beings could sabotage underwater facilities. The crystalline entities could disrupt communication networks. The humanoid species could provide ground forces. And Earth would provide the tactical doctrine, the strategies that had defeated Council forces in the solar system. Most importantly, they would attack together. A combined fleet from 100 worlds. The Council had never faced anything like it. The representatives debated for hours. Some thought the plan was too risky. Some thought it would never work. But they all knew one thing. If they did nothing, the Harbingers would activate. Their worlds would die. Their people would be erased. The vote was unanimous. They would attack the Council homeworld. They would disable the Harbingers. They would end the tyranny or die trying. The Free Alliance was born. Kyungmi was Earth's intelligence chief. She had been working in the shadows, coordinating spy networks across rebel worlds. Now she brought together information from dozens of sources, fleet movements, weapon placements, defense protocols. Every piece of data was studied, analyzed, and incorporated into the battle plan. She discovered something that changed everything. Not all council forces were loyal. The defeats at Earth had shaken the military. Some commanders questioned whether the council was worth dying for. Some soldiers remembered that they too had come from conquered worlds. The council's forces were beginning to fracture from within. This information gave the Alliance hope. If some council forces defected during the battle, the impossible odds became merely terrible odds. The fleet assembled in secret. Ships from 100 worlds gathered in an empty region of space far from council sensors. It was the largest military gathering in galactic history. Not the biggest ships, not the most advanced weapons, but the most diverse, and the most determined. Day one walked through the human section of the fleet. The ships were repaired and upgraded with alien technology. The crews were tired but ready. Everyone knew what was at stake. Everyone knew this might be a one-way trip. June found him in the corridor. The young technician looked older now. War had aged him in ways that time alone could not, but his determination had not wavered. "Sir, the fleet is ready. All systems are operational. We can jump to the council homeworld whenever you give the order." Daewon nodded. He thought about Hana. He thought about Bora. He thought about all the people who had died to get them this far. This attack was for them. This attack was to ensure their deaths meant something. Give the order. All ships jump in 1 hour. The message went out to the entire fleet. Final preparations began. Pilots checked their fighters. Engineers made last-minute repairs. Soldiers loaded weapons. Across 100 different ships from 100 different worlds, beings of every description prepared for the most important battle in galactic history. Admiral Tae-sung stood on the bridge of the flagship. Around him, officers from multiple species worked together. It should have been chaos. Instead, it was harmony. Different ways of thinking, different approaches to problems. But a shared goal united them. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Tae-sung. We are about to do something that has never been done before. We are going to attack the heart of the Council's power. Many of us will not survive, but those who do will see a new galaxy. A free galaxy. Today we do not fight for conquest. We fight for liberation. For ourselves. For our children. For every being that the Council has oppressed. Today we show the galaxy that tyranny can be defeated." The countdown began. 10 seconds, 5-0. The entire fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. Destination, the Council homeworld. The final battle was beginning. The Council homeworld was beautiful. From space it looked like a jewel hanging in the darkness. Ancient cities covered the continents. Orbital stations surrounded the planet like a crown. And defending it all was the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The Free Alliance fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Immediately alarms sounded across every Council facility. Nothing had ever threatened the homeworld before. The defenses had stood for thousands of years without being tested. Today they would be tested. The Council defense fleet moved to intercept. 3,000 ships against the Alliance's 500. But the Alliance was not trying to win a fair fight. Admiral Tae-sung had taught them better than that. The Alliance fleet split into multiple groups, each one targeting a different part of the defenses. Small, fast ships darted through the Council formations, drawing fire and causing chaos. Larger ships focused on the automated defense platforms. Every species used their unique abilities. Some created interference that confused sensors. Some had weapons that bypassed standard shields. Some could maneuver in ways that Council ships could not predict. And then something unexpected happened. A Council battle group broadcast a message. They were switching sides. Their commander had decided that defending tyranny was no longer worth dying for. Other ships followed. Not many, but enough. The Council's defense began to fracture. Councillor Ventar broadcast from the Alliance flagship. His message went out on every frequency. "Council forces, hear me. I am Ventar, High Councillor. The Council you serve has become corrupt. It rules through fear and oppression. Today we have a chance to change that. Stand down, join us. Help build a galaxy based on freedom, not domination." More ships defected. Not all of them. Many Council forces remained loyal. But enough switched sides to turn the battle from impossible to merely desperate. On the human flagship, Daewon watched the battle unfold. His job was to lead the assault on the Harbinger control facility. A small team would fight through to the planet's surface, reach the facility, and disable the weapons before they could activate. It was the same kind of mission that had killed Hana. The same kind of desperate assault that had cost so many lives. But there was no other choice. June was going with him. So were soldiers from a dozen different species. They loaded into assault ships and launched toward the planet while the battle raged around them. Council defensive fire was intense. Several assault ships exploded before reaching the atmosphere, but others made it through. They screamed down through the sky, their hulls burning from atmospheric entry. The Harbinger control facility was built into the side of a mountain. It was ancient, constructed thousands of years ago when the Council first rose to power. Massive doors sealed the entrance. Weapon emplacements covered every approach. The assault ships landed under heavy fire. Troops poured out, finding cover wherever they could. Energy weapons lit up the battlefield. Soldiers fell on both sides, but the Alliance forces kept advancing. June was working on the facility's security systems, trying to crack the codes to open the doors. Day One and the others provided covering fire. Around them, the battle raged. Above them, the space battle continued. Everything depended on getting inside that facility. The codes worked. The massive doors began to open, but Council reinforcements were arriving. They had minutes, maybe less, before they would be overwhelmed. Day One led half the team inside. The others stayed to hold the entrance. It was a death sentence, and everyone knew it. But they did it anyway, buying time with their lives. Inside, the facility was a maze of corridors and chambers. Ancient and modern technology mixed together. Council guards tried to stop them, but the Alliance troops fought with the desperation of people who knew this was their last chance. They reached the central control room. The Harbinger array controls were there, a complex system that connected to weapons hidden across the galaxy. June immediately started working to disable them, but the system was activating. The countdown had already started. In 10 minutes, the Harbingers would fire. Entire worlds would die, including Earth. June worked frantically, his hands flying over the alien controls. Dr. Yunji guided him through communication link, helping him understand the systems. But it was incredibly complex. Built by beings who had millennia of technological advancement. 5 minutes left. Council forces were breaking through into the facility. The sounds of fighting grew closer. 3 minutes. June found the command protocols. But they were protected by security systems he had never seen before. 1 minute. Council guards burst into the control room. Day One and the remaining soldiers opened fire. It was chaos, people dying on both sides. But June kept working, ignoring the battle around him. 30 seconds. June bypassed the final security protocol. His fingers moved to the shutdown command. 10 seconds. A council guard aimed at June. Day One threw himself in the way. The energy bolt hit him in the chest. He fell, but June had the time he needed. 0. June pressed the command. The system shut down. Across the galaxy, Harbinger weapons that had been preparing to fire went silent. Worlds that were seconds from death were saved. Day One lay on the floor, struggling to breathe. June knelt beside him, trying to stop the bleeding. But they both knew it was too late. The wound was too severe. Did we do it? Day One asked quietly. June nodded, tears running down his face. The Harbingers are disabled. Earth is safe. All the worlds are safe, Day One smiled. Then it was worth it, but Day One did not die. Not yet. A medical team reached them just in time. They stabilized him and got him to a ship. The wound was terrible, but he would survive. Barely. Above the planet, the battle was ending. With the Harbingers disabled and more Council forces defecting, the remaining loyalists surrendered. The Council homeworld had fallen. The tyranny that had ruled for 10,000 years was over. The cost had been terrible. Thousands of ships destroyed, hundreds of thousands dead. But they had won. They had changed the galaxy forever. In the weeks that followed, a new government formed. The Galactic Democracy, they called it. Every species had a voice. Every world had representation. Decisions were made by consensus, not by force. Councillor Ventar helped guide the transition, using his experience to build something better than what had come before. Day One recovered slowly. His body healed, though he would carry scars forever. When he was finally able to leave the hospital, he refused all the honors they tried to give him. He refused positions of power. He just wanted to go home. He returned to Earth. The planet had healed too. Cities were rebuilt. Life had returned to normal, though nothing would ever be quite the same. Memorials stood in every city, remembering those who had died for freedom. Day One became a teacher. He taught history to young students. He told them about the war, about the choices people had to make, about the price of freedom and why it was worth paying. Sometimes reporters would find him and ask for interviews. He always declined. He did not consider himself a hero. He was just someone who had said no when saying yes would have been easier. 5 years after the war ended, Daewon stood at a memorial wall. Thousands of names were carved into the stone. Hana's name was there. Bora's name. The names of everyone who had died fighting for Earth's freedom. A young student approached him. She had been studying the war in school. She asked if he had known anyone on the wall. Daewon looked at the endless rows of names. I knew all of them. They were called humanity, and they taught the galaxy that freedom is not given, it is taken. And once you have it, you never let go. In orbit above Earth, a new generation of ships patrolled. Human crews worked alongside alien allies. Species that had once been enemies now shared jokes and stories. The galaxy had changed. Not perfect, not without problems, but free. A young officer asked her captain what the war had really been about. The captain, a veteran who had fought at Jupiter, looked down at Earth spinning peacefully below. It was about one simple idea, that no one has the right to rule over others without consent, that freedom matters more than safety, that courage can change the galaxy. One human stood before the most powerful beings in existence and said no. And that changed everything. The young officer thought about that. So we won because we refused to lose. The captain smiled. We won because we understood something the council forgot. The only way to truly defeat someone is to break their will, and human will cannot be broken. Not by threats, not by superior weapons, not by impossible odds. We will bend. We will adapt. We will pay terrible prices, but we will never break. On Earth, Daewon finished his lesson and dismissed his students. They ran out into the sunshine, laughing and playing. They had grown up in a free galaxy. They took it for granted, as they should. That was what the war had been for. So the next generation would not have to fight. But Daewon knew that freedom required eternal vigilance. Tyranny never truly died. It just waited for people to forget. So he would keep teaching. Keep telling the stories. Keep reminding people of what freedom cost and why it was worth protecting. That night he stood outside and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were looking at their own skies, free for the first time in generations, building their own futures, making their own choices, all because one man had said no, all because humanity had proven that defiance matters.